Okay, so now we're at the final stretch of this conversation. So, within the context of connection and performance, there are many different ways in which people could lay out on a grid between the two contexts. At the lower left end is this concept of the person who is low on performance and low on connection. They're not doing well at the tasks that they are assigned. They're also potentially quite disconnected from themselves, they're quite disconnected from the team, or they're hyper-connected to the team, but quite disconnected to themselves. There's a distortion of reality that they're experiencing because something is missing on the connection element. So this person is typically feeling as though they are losing out. Now, losing out is not a very, very bad position to be in at all times. When we are disoriented, when we have a dark night of the soul, we could experience some of this. When we're moving into a new position and we're not connected to the new team and we're feeling at lost and we are feeling incompetent and we don't know why we're doing what we're doing, we could feel this way. When our job description has changed fundamentally, or how we are required to do our job has changed requiredly, and we're experiencing a deep difficulty with a management style and confusing instructions, we feel disoriented, we could feel as though we're losing out. There are very, very many reasons why this can be happening. And one of the most dangerous things that we can do as leaders is assume why this is happening and cast judgment on the person. The best way to approach this person is to give them honest feedback. Feedback that is not simply related to how poorly they're performing, but potentially also about your concern for this person. Too often we have the performance conversation with the person who is feeling or operating in this space. It is very, very useful to check in with this person, to find out from this person what it is that is happening for them, what it is that they're experiencing. So obviously there is a wide range of things that can be happening. There can be things that are happening in their immediate personal lives and personal realities that is impacting their performance. There could be a fact that they don't know how to do what they need to do and they've never been told by anyone that they're not doing what they're doing correctly. There could be that they are undertrained, undertooled, under-resourced, or they're being expected to perform at a level that is ahead of where they're at, and the sheer pressure of it is creating stress and anxiety. And there needs to be some degree of mediation between what they're capable of doing and what they're expected of doing. A good opportunity here is to ask them to diagnose or to assess or to evaluate what is happening for them and how they feel it is showing up in their results. Now, far too frequently we are having the performance conversation without the connection conversation. About a month ago, I had a conversation with a young man who was in this position, and I found out something that no one in his team knew, not even his manager. He had just lost his dad. But because his feeling of belonging is so remote, he feels so excluded from the team, he isn't able to share something that drastic with his team. Not his leader, not anyone else. When there are fluctuations in people's reality, let them articulate it, discover it with them, help them to discover what it is that is going on for them. One of the ways I would invite you to talk to the person who is in this space is to ask them what they'd like to accomplish over the next period of time, what success looks like for them in this space, how they choose to show up to create the success, what they're willing to do to create a greater level of performance. These are the people that need to know why they're coming to work beyond just a salary. Very often, they don't know this about themselves. They don't know why they are making sacrifices. They don't know why they're coming out to do a job. Very often, these people are also people who may need to make different choices for themselves. But conversations with people like this on an ongoing basis, or people who are in this space on an ongoing basis, conversations that are not shaming conversations, are typically conversations in which they discover what they need to do for themselves. If they are not in conversations that expand them, the only thing that they have left is the feeling of failure, the feelings of being excluded, feelings of shame, and feelings of self-criticism. And this does not end well for anyone. These are the people who take hostages and really, really make it difficult for other people to thrive. So often, superstars are sitting in this space. They just need to have the right conversations that allow them to reach out into, or reach past their own resistance, into their capacity to practice any degree of self-efficacy, to take on the challenges that will help move them out of where they are at, and to start seeing a version of themselves that they can be proud of and that can contribute productively. Also, what is very often in this space are people who are deeply hurt by the system within which they are. You may not be able to do anything about their hurt, but if you can create conversational spaces in which they can share that hurt without you taking responsibility for changing the experience, that is invaluable to them. Being seen, being heard, being witnessed is critical. In the end, you would only know how to address this if you actually have connecting conversations with people in this space. The question for you is, how much tolerance do you have of other people struggling, of other people's difficulties? And how much are you able to allow them to take responsibility for themselves without you stepping in to rescue them? These are not easy situations, but they are typically the kind of situations that if you can reach into these situations, you can literally turn around the energy of a team. To be in the space of losing out is an experience we all know. I would encourage you, if you are not yet comfortable to do so, to find and to develop and to cultivate the vulnerability to really reach into your stories of losing out, your stories of discovering your personal efficacy, your stories of discovering the meanings and the purposes that broker within you a level of commitment so that you can change and transform where you are, how you operate, and how you show up. People who are in the space very often need to borrow the support, the vulnerability, and the courage of other people so that they can start tapping into their own. The next quadrant I want to share with you is the quadrant of the person who is performing really, really well. And organizations and leaders really like people who operate from this quadrant, because in this quadrant it looks like people are really competent and really doing well, and they're performing to SLA, to standard, and they're meeting all the benchmarks in the environment, or the majority of the benchmarks in the environment. People operating from this space indefinitely is a bad idea. Now, the reason why these two quadrants exist at the bottom, at the base of connection, is because they need the external environment for motivation, for energy, and for drive. They're fairly disconnected from their own desires, and so when they operate, when they take action, they are typically taking action from the place of avoiding risk, avoiding sanction, avoiding loss, avoiding problems. They're not really in the space of creativity. They're not really in the space of desire. And because they are so risk averse, because typically so much of the major decision making comes from fight, flight, freeze, and appease, they are typically not able to let go of the status quo. When change is on the horizon, they are quite resistant. So the driven person on the surface might look exceptionally skilled, even gifted, and they actually probably are. But when things have to change, they come from a place of suspicion and resistance and cynicism and skepticism. They don't trust themselves outside of the status quo. They don't trust their ability to really do exceptionally well outside of the status quo. And they don't really remember what it was like to be incompetent. They know how to do what they're doing now, and the idea of being incompetent is it's unpalatable for them. They don't want to risk it. And so they are quite change resistant. They don't enjoy innovation. The success that they experience right now, they're very attached to it because they don't know that they can accomplish success in a different context. And so they create scenarios where they become dependencies in environments, or where they operate as if their knowledge is sacrosanct. They're not operating from the space of being the masterful contributor. They are rather operating from the space of being the unconsciously competent contributor who loves creating key man dependencies. And they love holding on to how it is here and now. The people who are in this space also, because their motivation is almost, systemically from avoiding rather than creating from a place of desire, they are very prone to perfectionism. They're very prone to imposter syndrome. They are desperately prone to people pleasing. And they become, walking the embodiment of burnout and exhaustion and anxiety. And this has a knock-on effect on the environment. Very little can happen and very little can change. And when things are happening and when things are changing, they advocate for the status quo. They'd rather work harder than think of different ways to work. They'd rather have things be difficult than risk newer, more efficient ways in which they don't have the feeling of complete control. This is a very delicate group of people, and we all live from this. I would say the vast majority of people live from this space, especially in the corporate environment. It is so important that we have conversations with them, and we have them remember what it's like to grow, what their beliefs are about growth, what their beliefs are about expansion, what their beliefs are about their next, what they're willing to let go of, what they might have to consider letting go of, what their role in the transformation, how they might want to lead the transformation, whatever transformation we're talking about, even if that transformation is an incremental change, their buy-in has to come from a place of desire and belief of what they can contribute rather than from the fear of what they can lose out. The people who are in this space are earnest people who really want to do well, but they are afraid. They have so much connected to their worthiness from the job that they're doing here and now, that if you are not nurturing their worthiness, you are going to find people who will work against you rather than with you. So tapping into their vision for the future, for themselves and for the team is vitally important for creating the next wave of what is possible in the team And many of the leaders that you're looking for might be sitting in this space. The only challenge is that they are not thinking beyond the current reality from a place of personal efficacy. Rather, they are thinking about the current reality from a place of neediness and disempowerment. The next group of people are a very rare group of people. These are people who have a sense of something bigger is calling them forward. They're willing to answer the call of more. They have, however, been competent at many different things, but they're not competent in the thing that is calling them forward. And so they have the idealism, they have the self-belief, they have the dream, they have the vision, they have the desire. It all comes from within, but they are incompetent at the thing that they want to accomplish. And so one of the things that typically happens here is high levels of procrastination, because they find great difficulty in putting themselves out into the new thing. They live between this emerging space and the driven space, and they feel like they're losing out, and they bounce between them over and over and over until they do anything material. What obviously happens in the organizational context is that there are always stressors, there are always emergencies, there are always fires to be put out. And so people slide back from this space into this driven space where they just do the work. When the person is in this emerging space, there is a almost compulsion in the system to pull them back. As the leader to this person, it is very, very important to put barriers between this person's moving backward and supporting this person to move forward. It's not always possible for us to do this. And as leaders, we also feel the pressure, and we might redeploy this person back to the space that they were once very, very, very competent in. And we may have to, but we have to do it in a way that contracts with them, in a way that keeps them connected and moving forward on the goals that they want to move forward on. Maybe it's someone who's exploring a new career path and it's not yet cemented. Maybe it's someone who is trying to build a new relationship with work itself and it's not yet cemented. Maybe it's someone who is having to shift or wanting to shift behaviors from being a team member to now starting to lead and starting to influence and impact the team differently. There's a discomfort that this person is feeling, and this person is expressing a willingness to endure this discomfort. But as all human beings, when the discomfort is there, we are easily seduced by the things that give us comfort. The conversations with this person is about how do we keep you connected to the future, even when you're engaging with things that you already have deep expertise on. In one of my own experiences, I had once put in disciplinary measures against someone. I was never going to intend to execute against any of those disciplinary measures. But I did say to the person, if you go back to being more than 40% occupied with the things that you have this deep expertise in, we're going to have problems and we're going to have very difficult conversations. And so there's a bit of pressure that has to be given to this person so that they can move forward. This pressure must, of course, be given with generosity, with lightheartedness, with kindness, because this is a very delicate space for the person who is emerging into a new version of themselves in an old environment. This next quadrant is the quadrant in which people experience complete flourishing. They're thriving. Now, this doesn't mean that everything is perfect. What it means is that they are competent enough both at a performance level, but more importantly, they have such levels of connection with themselves that their self-efficacy allows them to believe in themselves and to try their hand at new things on an ongoing basis. They don't rely on the external environment for validation. They have a strong center of validation within themselves. Now, the center validation is not a permanent center validation, but they do know that they are more than the things that they do in the organization and with the team. They are plugged into the totality of their identity. And so the work environment is not one that consumes them to the expense of the things that allows them to thrive. If we think about people who've got the ability to tap into all the different aspects of their lives, their different interests, when they come into the work environment, they come in with a richness that allows them to connect dots that others can't seem to line up and to connect. Their self-efficacy has them believing that they're contributing as equals, that what they say matters, that when somebody else is not accepting what they say, they have the robustness to not take it personally, and they have the willingness to nurture the people around them. They are willing to work to a place of redundancy within the current role because they are willing to take on new things on an ongoing basis. When we're in this space of flourishing, we lead regardless of what our designation is in the organization. And when we are in this place of flourishing, what we are is highly impactful in the environment. We become great ambassadors for the team and for the work that we do, and we become great ambassadors for the goals that we have within our team. People who are in this space typically makes change safe for themselves and for everybody else. My invitation to you is to notice where you are. No single person is in any one of these quadrants all the time. We are in different quadrants, in different aspects of our lives, and even within the different aspects of our lives, we can be in different quadrants depending on what it is that we are experimenting with and exploring and expanding into. Where do you see yourself in these quadrants within certain dynamics in the team? Where do you see yourself with certain individuals in the team? How do you see yourself in terms of certain aspects of your jobs with different people in this team? If you were to experiment to explore where each person is in the current reality in the team, could you plot them in this particular little graphic? I want to remind you yet again, I know I did it a moment ago, this is not about who a person is. This is not about putting a person in a box. This is about understanding where the leverage points are for people. If people are struggling with performance, the leverage point is not exclusively performance. It's probably got to do with purpose, with meaning, and with connection in the team, with belonging, with their freedom to experiment, explore, and get things wrong. What is critically important is to recognize what the struggles are of the team and how you respond, how you react at an emotion, at a nervous system level to their challenges. I want to invite you to notice anything that comes up for you, notice the objections that come up for you with anything that I've shared, and please notice any questions you might have. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'm available on email, I'm available on WhatsApp. And in the conversations we have, please let's unpack what your challenges are so that you can move your team forward.